In this movie, we will begin to create our HTML5 layout by creating our initial page and making sure the doc type declaration is correct. Before we begin creating our page, let's take a moment to explore doc type declarations, why they were necessary, and what HTML5 requires regarding them. As we've discussed previously, the history of HTML is a bit messy. Early on, specifications weren't as widely followed, and browser implementation varied widely. As HTML matured, browsers that were written to author the latest specification would tend to break if presented with earlier, non-conforming HTML. To ensure older pages still worked, browsers created two rendering modes, Quirks mode and Standards mode. Quirks mode would render the older, non-valid code, while Standards mode would ensure that pages were rendered correctly based on the current specification. Of course, this just presented another problem. How would browsers know which mode to use? The solution was to include a doc type prior to the HTML tag that would identify which version of HTML or XHTML was used to author the page. Since older versions of HTML didn't require doc types, the absence of one would trigger Quirks mode. As a result of the many variations of HTML and the rendering requirements, a bewildering array of doc types sprang up. XHTML, for example, had a doc type for the three flavors of XHTML, strict, transitional, and frameset. Well, here's one now. Well, HTML5 is designed to be both backwards compatible and a single flavor, if you will. All the doc type in HTML5 declares is that it's an HTML document. I've read in a few places that the doc type isn't required for HTML files, but that's not altogether accurate. The specification states that a doc type is required to trigger Standards mode, but that it serves no other purpose. Because of this, they've simplified it considerably. Behold the new HTML5 doc type in all its glory. You know what? That's actually easy enough to memorize. With that in mind, let's create a new page and add the HTML5 doc type. So again, I'm going to use Dreamweaver to do this, but you guys can use any HTML editor you like. It does not matter. You can even use a text editor. And if you're used to creating your HTML documents that way, you can just go ahead and do that. Okay, I'm going to create a new HTML file. Now, Dreamweaver is really nice and tries to help you out because it knows that no one would ever remember the doc type declarations for older document types. As a matter of fact, I'm betting if you use a different type of code editor, it has some similar type of functionality, or you probably have document types saved as snippets. Well, again, that's long. It's not necessary anymore. It doesn't identify our document as being an HTML5 file, so it is gone. Just go ahead and create a blank line at the very top of the page. There we go. All right, now, with all the fanfare it's necessary, we're going to go ahead and create a HTML5 doc type. We're just going to go ahead and type in doc type, space, HTML, and close it. That's it. Now, make sure that you don't have any white space prior to the doc type. If you do have empty lines above that, that could also trigger Quirks mode. So regardless of how you're creating that, you want to make sure you don't have any space up there. That's it. I'm going to go ahead and save this file. And I'm going to save it out to my exercise files that I copied over to the desktop earlier. And inside my exercise files, I'm going to find chapter 3. I'm going to go in the 0305, and I'm going to save this as trails.htm. So this is the page that we're going to be building a little bit each time as we go. I'm going to go ahead and hit save. And for the most part, our page is ready to go. Well, that's it, really. That's all that's required to serve up an HTML5 page. Now, the doc type is one of the things within HTML5 that has been thankfully simplified from previous versions. Even if you have to hand code the doc type yourself, I think you'll agree it's pretty easy to remember and pretty easy to execute.